Hello, fellow writers. I'm Lewis. That over there is Tolkien, and you have found the Scripturian Society.
Welcome back, everybody. I had a moment where I was wait, do I do the introduction to this?
Oh.
No, I don't. I do that for our sister podcast, That Pretentious Book Club. So, hooray, I didn't mess up. And then I just drew all of your attention to the fact that I didn't mess up, which I just did about something else, like right before we recorded too. Apparently, I really want praise today for simply not being in constant error.
Yeah. Good job, Ash.
Thank you. Thank you, Karissa. That over there is Karissa Harlow, aka Lewis. I'm your other host, Ash O'Rourke, aka Tolkien. And if you guys were looking for a writing podcast, you found it. You're in the right place. Congratulations. You did not err either. Isn't that nice? And if you did, you can pretend you didn't. We'll never know the difference.
It's true. Yeah. it's like my very first day in college, I went to the wrong room for my math class, and I was so embarrassed by the fact that I was in the wrong room that I just sat through the entire class and missed my actual real class because I was so like, I don't want to get up and draw attention to the fact that I was this wrong. So
that's hilarious. There's no way you're the only one though. I feel like, I wonder how many students a year end up doing that. Hi, Creeper.
Yeah. Are you recording already?
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Hey, you want a wiener?
Wiener Schnitzel. Have you ever heard of Wiener Schnitzel?
Nice.
My husband just came in for everyone who I'll cut out maybe a little bit of it, but for reference.
Yeah, I'm gonna shower change and then.
Okay. I don't know what that means. He said he's gonna shower change and then go somewhere. Was he was implying? I don't know what that means.
I heard I'm gonna shark it. I'm like, ooh, is this new hobby slang?
No, I mean I'm sure that means something, but he brought me a Wiener Schnitzel. So that's nice. Have you ever been there to Wiener Schnitzel?
Yes.
I hadn't even heard of it
often, but a couple times. Yeah.
It's yummy. It is like the ultimate junk food. I don't remember what we were talking about before because I was just suddenly like being creeped on.
I was talking about my first class.
Oh yes, that's right.
College. So like if you're having a bad day, at least it's not that.
Yeah, so. It could be worse. You could be accidentally stuck in the wrong classroom with pretty much no window to get up and leave without people noticing and staring at you.
It is funny because it was a pretty big class. And so like the teacher went around the room and wanted everyone to introduce themselves, but it was by the class list. So I was sitting there, I'm like, I know my name's not on there. I just hope that no one is paying enough attention to me to notice that I don't stand up and introduce myself.
That is stressful. Wow.
So yeah, it was fun. As far as I know, no one noticed, but because at least like that's not your day.
People, no, there were definitely other people sitting with you doing the exact same thing. Everyone was just praying that they weren't gonna get singled out. Yeah. Anyways, how's your week been?
It's been like one of those weeks that's an emotional roller coaster for no reason. Just literally no understandable reason. I've been going up and down. So I had moments like I've been doing pretty well on TikTok, which you'd think would be a good thing, but then I'm just extra stressed about it. And I just had a couple times where I'm sitting and I'm like, you know what I should do? I should think back on every mistake I've ever made, like that college story and all of the embarrassing moments I've had. And, just like, what if everyone I've ever known hated me? And just like gone over all that for no reason. There's no reason for it. I think it's partially
self-loathing.
Yeah, I just need to hate myself for a while. I think it's because I haven't been sleeping super great. I don't know, but
that'll do it.
I'm trying, but it's weird because I'm so productive at night that like that's when I'm doing my job searches and my writing and my querying and all that kind of stuff. But then I have to be up early to be with the puppies. So then I'm like, look, 4 hours of sleep. That's enough. So then I've been napping. So it's been just kind of weird. So.
Well, I feel that. I mean, I feel that completely for no like real reasons, like intense ups and downs. You need sleep. I'm going to go to the doctor and like on Friday. So in like 2 more days, I'm very excited. I've needed to go for a long time and I'm going to be like
excited.
I am actually excited for once. I never am, but I am this time because I cannot express to you guys the level of chaos that my emotional state has been for like the last like 6 months, but the last like 2 months has just been crazy. And I basically PMDD awareness. If you guys don't know what it is, I did this on That Pretentious Book Club, and I was going to try and not drag it on over here. But if you guys don't know what it is, it's called premenstrual dysphoric disorder, and all the boys just tuned out. But basically, it means that like that big hormone jump that you get like right before your period starts or whatever once a month when you feel really emotional. If you have PMDD, you can get that, a few times a month, and it tends to be pretty severe. And so I've just been in a constant state of that, and it's gotten so much worse. Like when I went to the doctor about it a couple of years ago, she was like, well, there's no real treatment for it except for I was on a birth control that was meant to treat it. And it did. And it's like the only, and then it almost gave me a stroke. So they took me off of it. So that's great. So women are dying from it. And I'm glad that they're not continually putting women on it. But it was the only medication other than just straight antidepressants that can be used to treat it. And so back then they were like, well, do you want to try antidepressants? And I was like, no, I'm going to try like some coping mechanisms first. And I did counseling, and it was wonderful, and it helped with a lot of stuff that was not related to PMDD, just because I'm a human being with a lot of feelings and trauma like everybody has. And that helped for a while. And then the last like couple of months, I've had like a lot of hormonal symptoms. I won't get into because you guys are so not here for that. But anyways, that on top of my like the intense ups and downs have been constant. So I actually am excited because I'm going to go back to the doctor on Friday and be like, do you remember when 2 years ago you suggested the possibility of antidepressants? Well, things are way worse now. And I think perhaps we should revisit this opportunity. So I don't know if we'll go with that or something else, but it's been such chaos that like, I'm excited to go and potentially find a solution. Like that's how you know that it's bad, is if I'm in any way
excited to go
for your
doctor's appointment. Yeah.
So, and it's like an hour drive from here too, because I found one doctor that I trust, and I the only one ever in my whole life. And so I don't want to leave them. So I'm like, I'll be taking off the last half of the day to go there, because I'm not going to find a closer doctor because I don't want to.
Yeah, fair. So today I actually had a doctor's appointment too. And it was one of those, like, it's the least anxious I've ever been to go to a place that I had to drive to. Does that make sense? So like, I normally get very anxious the day before because I'm not worried about traffic. I'm not worried about accidents. I'm worried about getting lost, because I get lost all the time and I miss turns. And so I'm like, I'm going to be late or I'm going to get lost and just like not know what to do. And so I was feeling very good about it. And I'm like, that's usually a concerning sign if I feel good about it. But then I woke up this morning and I left when I said I was going to leave. I hit like mostly green lights on the way there. I happened to be in the right lane the whole time when I had to turn. I found it and I got there and checked in within 4 minutes to spare. And I was like, this has gone extraordinarily well. Why can't my whole life go like this?
That's amazing. You're like, yes, but let's apply it to everything all the time. Yeah,
exactly. And so that was cool. And the appointment went well. So, nice. I mean, doctors aren't terrible.
No, it's just most of the ones that I've met are, because inevitably, most of my experiences go, I typically would go into the doctor and they'd be like, it seems to me like you're completely fine. And I'd be like, that's strange, because I don't feel in any way like I'm completely fine, but you're the doctor.
The opposite of fine.
Yeah, exactly. And so then I leave having spent money with absolutely no kind of solution. And this is, I have to also like preface that with, I go to the doctor maybe once a year, maybe like twice, like in the last few years because of like I said, PMDD and stuff. But other than that, like, or if I have an asthma attack, that's about it. So I don't really go to the doctor that much, and I will typically put things off. So if I go, I feel like they should know by the sheer fact that I never go, that I'm clearly not making it up. And do I know what it seriously is? Maybe not. And so then I like Google search, and I will say this is like, I know some people are like, don't Google search, you're just going to give yourself anxiety. I actually feel a lot less anxious knowing that there might be these like possibilities I could name and there could be solutions to. And so I like to research. I know I could be wrong because I'm not a doctor, but then also when I go in and they're like, you're fine, then I'm like,
but what about this?
But what about these things that it could be and you didn't consider any of them? And there've been a couple times that I feel sure that I'm right, simply by the fact that I gave any kind of attention to what I was dealing with versus them just sending me home and charging me a lot of money. So this is like the one doctor that has not done that to me. And every time I've gone in, which has been a handful of times, there has been something there. Like there's been an actual thing. They're like, oh, we need to take care of that now. And so I'm like, I just feel so validated that I'm like, one doctor believes me. And this happened to my mom forever too, because So if you guys know what endometriosis is, all of like the female health lessons today, but basically until very recently, the medical industry is largely dominated by dudes, and it's pretty much and it is something that only affects women, and therefore it wasn't given a lot of attention until a lot more recently, but tons of women have it. Like if you look up the statistics, it is shocking how many women have it. Yeah, and most women don't even know what it is. And it can be really awful and debilitating and occasionally dangerous if it gets really severe. Not to freak anyone out, but like talk to your doctor about it if you're like, what's happening to my body?
PSA.
Anyways, yeah, PSA. But like, just because it's shocking to me that we don't talk about it more, because it is so common. But basically, for years and years, my doctors kept telling my mother that she had chronic appendicitis. Like, what is
that even a thing?
That's what I'm saying. Is that even a thing? Like, if it is, they so like did not apply the Occam's razor thing there, because I'm like, chronic appendicitis, or we perhaps just for a moment consider the fact that we're treating a female patient, and we just for a moment think about what perhaps that it only affects females could be affecting this woman who we know has a hormonal imbalance that we've been treating with this like hormone medication stuff.
Yeah.
You would think
what
if we just, and so
we just thought about that.
What if we just thought about it for a second? And so my mom's experience too has made me biased. So anyways, anyone out there studying medicine, I'm proud of you and listen to your patients.
I feel like we totally tricked people. We're like, this is a writing podcast. And we're like, psych, it's about amateurs discussing medical things.
This is about, I know things, I know medical things, even though I have no experience. I don't actually. I just know that disregarding patients is rude and makes us not want to come in until we are actually dying.
True.
So
I do think it's interesting. Like I talked to you and I talked to some other people, and I've noticed there's an enormous difference between like the perception of doctors with people who had like generally physically healthy childhoods and people that have conditions. Because so like I have a condition, like everyone I know who had a condition as a child, like our trust for doctors is just like 100%. It's just like so much harder. Like you go to the doctor and they say nothing's wrong and you're like, awesome, this was worth the money, because that's what you want to hear. Whereas like other people go to the doctor and they're like, there's nothing wrong. And you're like, then why am I here? What did I do this for? So it's just totally different.
It is.
So it's interesting to always hear you talk about it.
Yeah. Because like you guys, because I guess if you have a condition, then you go regularly. And so you probably build trust and stuff too.
Yeah.
And so that's part of it. But like if you're generally healthy or if you avoid doctors, then you don't go very often at all. So you don't have an opportunity to build trust. And then if you're not taken seriously, you're like, but I never come into the doctor. So the whole thing is this like self-destructive cycle. And there's not a ton that I can do about it. But that's an interesting observation. That does make sense. My friend who like grew up in a family of like all doctors, of course, she wasn't a doctor, but she was like 100% trust in the medical industry. And I was just like, I cannot fathom.
Cannot relate
that at all.
Yeah. It's true, because like I've had the same doctors for my condition for basically my whole life. So I've known them so long.
Yeah.
So like today, the guy that was
a primary care provider, I think, since I was like a young child.
I know. I hate going to the primary doctor because I feel like there's no need for that, even though I understand it. But like the ones that I've known forever.
I've gone to a primary care provider, like, and they've never actually become my primary care provider because you have to like list them, and I just don't, because I'm like, I don't want to go back to see them again. But like every time I go, oh my God, my brain just totally like blanked out on what I was saying.
I don't know.
Oh my God, what the hell?
Silence. Brain silence.
Yeah.
Let me just take a very large, loud sip of water.
I had a good point on it and I totally forgot what it was. Oh well, I guess Ash's goldfish brain strikes again.
That's like an extreme case. It's like within seconds.
It was literally within seconds.
Conversation.
Like, going, gone. It was like absolutely no. God, what was I saying? That is so frustrating. I was so close to my point.
Doctors.
Oh, I remembered it. Okay. Every time that I've gone to a primary care provider, it's always been for something very specific, because I only know if I can tell that something is very, very wrong and I can't fix it by myself, because I've usually tried first. And so then I go, and then they'll usually say something like, well, you need to go see this other type of doctor. And I've gotten that a few different times. And I'm like, so I came to see you And
For
I
you to tell me.
understand that you can't do this stuff yourself, but I just wasted all this time and money for you to tell me that I have to go see another doctor where I waste time and money and hope that they have the answer. So generally when that's happened, I've just been like, I'm not going. Then I go home and I don't ever go back to the doctor. I did the same thing with my dental work. I still don't have my wisdom teeth out because I'm like, interesting. Yeah, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, we're going to pass on that. It is also interesting how like you and I differ on like medications and stuff. And I think this is a childhood condition thing where you're like very hesitant to take medications and like go to the doctor. And I'm like, if you prescribe me anything, I will take it. Like the concept of like taking medication is just so familiar to me. I'm good. Like that's probably going to be my downfall one day.
It's hilarious. No, I mean, it's a good thing for the most part. I've gotten past the point where I'm like, I'm just going to tough it out and not take a Tylenol if I have a bad headache. If I have like a slight headache, I'll still not take anything. But for the most part, like it used to be like let myself be in extreme pain and not take stuff.
I know.
I don't do that anymore. Yeah, I have gotten better about it. And it's not even like a distrust of most medicine, but I have a distrust of a lot of the quote unquote safeguards that are supposed to be in place. I just think,
I get that. Yeah.
And this is not at all even a controversial thing at all, because I think we all agree that
there's side effects.
There's side effects, and there's a lot of corruption in the agencies that are more about making money than keeping people healthy. And so I have this inherent like, I'm not sure I want to take it, even though most of the medicine that I would take for anything has been around forever. And we know the side effects, they're well established. So there's that. Although I'm about to go to the doctor, and because it's a doctor I trust, this is my gynecologist, by the way. I go to her for everything. I went to her when I was like, I'm out of my allergy medicine. And I just wound it. I just mentioned it at the end of my appointment for like an actual female thing. And she's like, we can take care of that. And I was like, thank you. I will only go back to her, and she's wonderful. But like,
that's so funny.
So now I always have to think like, okay, while I'm here, what else was I gonna ask a doctor about? Because I'll just throw it in at the end, because this is the only, and I feel bad because I'm like, I know it's not really your thing, but I'm already here. And if you don't help me, no one will help me, because I'm not going to go get help from anyone else. But anyways, so I'm going to go ask them like, so drugs, what kind of drugs do you think I need to fix everything?
What kind of drugs can you offer me?
What kind of drugs would you recommend? And so I'm predicting that they'll say something like antidepressants, and it's like a bioidentical progesterone, because one is pretty common treatment for PMDD and the other one is pretty common for endometriosis. So I suspect if they suggest any kind of medication, it'll be those two. If they don't, then I think we're just going to both be looking at each other. We're just going to be staring at each other the whole appointment, because there's, as far as I know, there's like really no other treatments really, unless we've grown some since then. But like I said, I'm pretty like
grown some.
I mean,
we found that rosemary helps. They have a garden out back.
Yeah, something like that. No, I just mean like, unless like there's some new science, but I kind of like keep a watch on like all that like field of research like a hawk, because I'm just curious, because it's something that like no one paid attention to until relatively recently. Yeah. And so I'm just like on it like a hawk all the time to see if there's been any like developments. And so unless there's something that they know that I don't know, which would literally be their job, so it's possible. I am an English major, so it is not my job. So you never know. But anyways, now everyone knows way more about my medical profile than I ever wanted anyone to.
Thank you for medical advice with the Scripturian Society.
If you're in danger, please call 911. We are not. It's like when you call.
You're not
medical
experts.
This is a medical emergency. Please dial 911. Yeah.
I'm like, who is calling their doctor as they're having a heart attack? Like, who is not already calling 911?
Oh, see, that might be me. I might be like, I'm having some slight pains. I might be dying. What do you recommend? And then in my situation, they'd be like, you'll probably be fine. Just give it 10 minutes.
Fine. Go on as normal.
I mean, that's typically, because I even called doctors before and been like, what do you recommend? They're like, you're probably fine. Like I called a nurse once when I was having an asthma attack, because there was this like emergency nurse line through our insurance. And she was like, well, you'll probably be fine. And then it got worse like half an hour later, and my siblings took me in the emergency room and they were like, oh no, and like strapped this thing on me so I could breathe. And I was like, okay.
You are not fine.
I don't feel like I'll be fine. Yeah. Anyway, so fun stuff. Fun doctor stories. I'm sorry guys, you didn't come here for this. Anyways, do you have any book recs? for people this
I
week?
do kind of. So, do you know who Karen McManus is? She wrote One of Us is Lying.
Ooh, I know that.
Okay. So I've read One of Us is Lying, and then I recently read The Cousins, which is one of her newer ones. And these are the only two I've read. And I liked it. Here's the thing about her. I feel like she is like next generation murder mystery, if that makes sense. So like all of her
Ooh.
solutions are very like out of the box and kind of
Mhm.
obscure. And so if you're a big murder mystery fan and you've read a lot, I think you would like her because she really like twists what you're expecting to happen. If you're like me and you don't read a lot of murder mysteries and you just want a simple, like, here's our cast of people who could have done it and which one is it, it kind of will leave you a little disappointed because it never goes in like that linear direction. So it's kind of weird. It's never like a whodunit. It's a whodunit, but also maybe what you think is going on isn't what's actually going on. So it is cool. I like it on like a literary level, and I feel like for the genre, it's really cool. But I would mostly recommend it for people that really like murder mysteries in general and have a lot of background in them. If that
sounds
makes sense.
really good. Somebody recommended at That Pretentious Book Club, a listener recommended, what was it called? Pride and Premeditation, which is a Pride and Prejudice twist on a murder mystery. And there's another one that's Sense and Sensibility themed, and I do not remember who it's by at the moment, but it sounds amazing, and I want to add it to like, because I really like mysteries, but I don't read them all the time. I mostly read them in the fall for some reason. They're like a fall aesthetic thing for me.
They're a fall
thing. They are. So I was like, thank you so much. I'm adding these to my fall reading list right now because they sound so interesting. I definitely have to read them even outside the pod. As for actual book recs from me that I have read myself, usually I have some kind of book rec. Instead, all I can say is this week we read Fallen by Lauren Kate. But it was the same person who recommended those amazing sounding books was the one who recommended Fallen on That Pretentious Book Club. And now I keep talking about her, so I feel like I should give her a shout out, even though this is not the podcast that she messaged. But her name is Brianna.
Okay, cool. Fallen is like one of those books that it just started something. It was almost like Twilight, but you know, like not quite as popular as Twilight. It like started a genre of things.
It's
and
like
so it's like
icon.
you kind of have to, you have to read it to understand the genre, but there are some things about, like, it's so funny. You were talking about it like last time, and I guess that's what you were talking about. And then you're like, how did you guess that? I'm like, it's because you're right in all of the things, all of the theories you have, but I can't tell you that because I don't know how far you are.
Except for my one big one where last time I was like, you kept it so together. I would have been laughing my ass off because I was like, I think I'm finally in love with the good guy. I think I finally fell for the good guy.
I know. I was like, no.
Spoilers. Spoiler alert for Fallen by
actual
Lauren Kate.
Demon.
He's an actual demon. I was like, wait, is this the devil himself at the very end? But the whole time I had been patting myself on the back because I was like, I for once fell for the good guy. Yeah, right. What a trick. And then Kendall usually falls for the good guy. But this time she thought she was falling for the bad boy because the Daniel Gregory, who's an angel. So
that's what I liked. So I knew I'm like, he's the good guy because I like him.
Yeah, but you guys picked the aloof one. I was like, I'm not having any of this aloofness. Like, I will be paid attention to, or I'm going to assume you're not attracted to me. And you guys were like, I don't know. That's what I like.
Yeah, for once, I'm going to go with that. And then you're like, actually, this is the same thing you've liked the entire time. You're like, oh, okay. So nothing different here.
So nothing changed. No. But I'm super grateful. Again, thank you, Brianna, for my exciting fall book recs for mystery stuff. And also for finally making me read Fallen, because I did intentionally avoid the YA angel romance books. Like, I just, something about them was like, we talked about it on That Pretentious Book Club a little bit, but I'm like, hot flying teenagers with wings just somehow doesn't sit quite right with me. It's just hard to picture.
I always feel weird about them. Yeah, I always feel weird about them because they inevitably go so like blasphemous, if that makes sense, you know, like biblically. And I'm always just like, I'll always really enjoy the first like book or two, and then we get to like, you know, 3 and 4, and I'm like, oh boy, that's not how the Bible works. And I know that's not the point, but I'm always just like, I don't know how comfortable I am with this. So plus I don't understand the wing thing. This is also a thing with like the Court of Thorns and Roses. Like they have wings. I'm like, why is that attractive? That's a bird thing.
That's exactly what I think. Yeah.
I don't get it.
The blasphemous thing used to bug me when I was a little younger. Maybe that's why originally I was like, I don't know about this. Now I'm like, I don't know. I just feel like there are so many interpretations of like reinterpretations of like biblical lore. Like they turn it into biblical lore instead of like actual stories from the Bible. And I think that like enough of us know the difference that doesn't bother me too much anymore.
It's like a what if scenario as opposed to a real explanation.
Exactly.
Like I can do that.
Yeah, I thought about it a lot when I started watching the show Lucifer, because like I was like, this show is so good, and of course it pulls from like little bits of like Bible stuff here and there, but mostly it's stuff from like Paradise Lost and Dante's Inferno. So it's like biblical lore, and then they're like, and then what if? And so I was like, this is so far removed from the original content. I'm not bothered by it, but it's the wings for me. I'm like, okay, so hot bird teenagers. That's gonna be. It's just hard to get used to. And it was hard this time too. Lucifer, I was saying on the other pod, is nice because they do the wings as well as you can, but also they rarely fly with them. Like you don't see them fly. And that helps a lot. Whenever they fly and we have to like picture them flying and looking hot, I'm just like, it's a bird.
It's hard to make that not cheesy.
Yes, it's just cheesy. And I really admire the people who it doesn't bother, because I think their suspension of disbelief must just be so much stronger than mine.
High tier.
It's high tier. Like genuinely, like they must enjoy so many more things than I do. I'm like, God, I wish it didn't bug me. But I did still really enjoy Fallen because, God, I love the boarding school. I love the like Savannah, Georgia, like southern spooky,
it's so dark.
Boarding school. God, I loved the setting. I really liked the characters too. All the characters were great. So I enjoyed it immensely. And there was relatively little angel wings. So I was okay with it. But I was like, I do see why I avoided the genre. But I probably would have loved this book, especially if I read it back then when I was actively avoiding it. So I guess that's of my book rec.
Yeah. Isn't there a scene where like they swim? And I'm like, birds don't swim, except they totally do. But in my mind, birds fly. They don't go in water. So I'm like, this is the most unbelievable part of this book.
That is hysterical. Birds don't swim. Oh my God. I'm going to tell Kendall and she's going to like scream. Oh, that's hysterical. We were just impressed because I told Kendall I gave you like the barest details of the book, and you're like, it's Fallen by Lauren Kate. I was like, what?
That was my moment in the sun. Like that was a good moment for me. I was on point then.
First time. Like it's like you're an encyclopedia, especially for YA fiction. You are the
if
YA
I've read it, I remember it.
Yeah. See, I don't. I'll read it like twice and then I'll be like, I've never heard of that book. Tell me about it. And then it'll be like the first time every single time. Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah.
Also, those covers are awesome.
Dude, the covers are awesome. I'm all about it.
I love the covers. Anyway.
Do we have a word of the week?
Next. We do. For Ash, how many episodes have we done? And I always lose track of if the word of the week or the book recommendations comes first. So that's why I always have to have you cue me in. And like, I don't even know if you're doing it in the same order. Okay.
I can't remember.
Are we consistent? Don't know.
I don't know. We do them in the same segment. And so I feel like that's close enough. And who knows? I just go with confidence. Go with God.
Do it.
Go with confidence.
It works.
Yeah, no one's gonna know or care if they do.
All right. Our word of the week is Sweven.
Sweven.
Sweven. And it is an archaic word that means a dream or vision, a prophetic waking dream, or a waking premonition.
Ooh.
So it's like a
my money was on
kind of dream.
Artificial sweetener. Because that's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Sweven.
No.
I'll take an unsweet tea. I'm on a diet, so I'm just going to use Sweven instead of sugar.
Put some dreams and prophetic visions in this coffee.
Ooh, lucid coffee, lucid tea.
Yeah.
Like you can buy at the Ren Fair.
Yep.
Sweven.
I mean, so it is like an archaic word. So like, I don't know if I would use it in your prose, but I was thinking if you're creating like a magic system or a world or like a sci-fi world, it would be a cool thing to base terms on.
Ooh,
So
I like
you know, that kind of a
Yeah.
thing. So Sweven, it's very cool.
good.
And there are
I
all
like
kinds of
it.
forms of it if you want to look it up. It's like, I think it's Old English. So it's like the Beowulf style where there are
Hell
like no
yeah.
vowels. So
It's SWVN.
yeah, Sweven.
Oh, I love it. That's good.
Yeah, sounds fun.
Sweden. God. I use stevia in a lot of my drinks, and I'm just gonna call it Sweven.
Sweven
No
now.
one's gonna know but me what the connection is. But
Yep.
again, I'm gonna go with confidence, so it's not gonna matter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Life lessons with Ash.
Life lessons with Ash. Ask your doctor about PMDD and endometriosis, and
Speak with confidence, and you can lie so often, no one will ever know.
no one will ever know. Yeah. Actually, that's horrible advice. Don't lie, because then you have to remember things. That's actually why I don't lie, is because we've seen my memory already like gap multiple times in this episode. I can't lie. I forget what I lied about.
Right.
Yeah. Anyways,
that's the reason lying is wrong.
Yeah, that's why. Well,
Yeah.
it's somewhere I take it from Mark Twain, because he's a quote, if you don't lie, you don't have to remember anything. And I'm like, and in the
Love
most
it.
practical sense, he meant it to be funny, and I was like, in a very practical way, that is exactly correct for me. Also
true.
because it's morally wrong, but also because even if I wanted to do it, I can't.
Couldn't pull it off.
Couldn't pull it off. No.
Yeah.
Anyways, what is our theme for this episode?
I tried to go on topic with the word of the week again. So our theme is dream sequences. Ooh.
I know.
Sweven
When you
sequences.
said Sweven, I was like, this is like a synonym for our theme.
Yeah. I'm trying to be on topic. I don't know how long I'll keep that up. Because the word has to exist.
Sequences.
Sweven sequences. We have our title.
That's
Roll
good.
credits. Anyway.
And that's all you came for.
That's it. That's all, folks. Yeah. So dream sequences. So obvious, I think we know dream sequences are when you like have a dream in your book. So how do you feel about dream sequences? My big thing is you don't, and this is very common advice, you don't open your book with a dream sequence.
No.
Right? Because that just misleads readers about where the story is going.
Yeah.
And things happen in dreams that don't happen in real life. So that's just kind of a misleading thing to do. Other than that, I'm kind of 50-50 on them. So what is your opinion on dream sequences?
I think it's hard to have a hard and fast rule on dream sequences, because they are so useful, especially for like revealing something that the character doesn't consciously realize that they know already. So like unearthing like secrets and stuff. I think that's what they're absolutely great for. There's one in Fallen. Actually, there's several in Fallen. There's one in my book that I'm working on writing right now, which I'll give my updates at the end of the episode on. That's actually really important too, because it kind of like dredges up a memory. So dreams are just weird, and they can be so practically useful when you include them. I think that they're really flexible too. So I think that like they're a great way to add like a fantasy element to an otherwise more realistic book, especially like if you're doing magical realism. Dream sequences could be a great way to be like, is it a dream? Isn't it a dream? Was there something real to the dream? Ooh. But I do agree that they shouldn't open your book, because that sets up, it just doesn't set up. It doesn't set you up well for the rest of the book, because it's confusing.
You have to undo everything when you finally get to present time, and that's just too much. That's too complicated. Don't do that to yourself.
I agree. I think my like one word of warning, well, two if you count the don't, but at the beginning of the book, my other word of warning is I think that they tend to drag on too long sometimes, and that's what makes me tune out. So I would say the biggest thing to avoid, be as like, magical, goofy as you want. I don't care, but avoid being too long. I feel like 2-3 pages max is a good dream sequence. If you go beyond 3 pages of a dream sequence, even beyond 2, I'm gonna be kind of like, I came here for the waking story. I'm not really into this anymore. So just aware, and maybe don't use them all the time. Like there might have been one too many for me in Fallen. So like use them sparingly. I feel like you can get away with maybe 2 in a book.
Yeah. I mean, if they're going to foreshadow things or hint at things, really you just don't want to go on too long, because then like you don't need to show the whole dream. Like weird stuff happens in dreams. You don't need to show that someone is like 20 feet tall or that some random person from their past is there, unless that person is important. So the shorter you make it, just like you always say, being concise, like that's when you're going to get down to like, what about this dream is actually important for the story? And what am I trying to use as filler? I this could just be a me thing or a young writer thing or whatever. But when I was younger, I used to just fill in dream sequences when I was trying to up my word and page count, because I was like, I want this to be a long book. Maybe I'll add some dreams. That's the wrong way to do it. But if the dream is relevant in terms of foreshadowing or hinting, I think that can totally work. I think it works best. I do notice it in a lot of YA paranormal stuff, because I think when it comes to something like past lives or, you know, secrets and that kind of stuff, the kind of thing that goes with like angels and demons or vampires or that kind of stuff, it is somewhat useful to show what's going on subconsciously and how a past life might connect to this life or whatever. But I definitely agree it should be short, because you need to be focusing in on what is actually important to the story, not trying to fill up the story with extra details. And I think like in Fallen or something like that, we know something's going on. You don't have to hide the clue in the dream. The dream itself can be the clue. It's like, you don't have to add a bunch of red herrings to it. You can add a couple, but don't add too many, because the point of the dream is to kind of hint at what's going on, not mislead us. So
it's true. Well, and I think also you want it to feel realistic for your character to have a dream like that. And so then, I mean, if you think about, for the most part, when you have a dream, even if you're like, this is the best dream ever, you wake up and you're going to remember like a teeny fraction of it. So your character should only recall a teeny fraction of it, unless you're doing something like, and that's why you can also just show the most important part. And that's it. Or just snippets from the dream, I think is a great way to do it.
That's what people would remember.
Because that's what you remember, is like, I remember this element and that. And I think that that's a more effective way to do it without losing your reader's interest. Come on, goldfish brain. I was going to say dream sequences.
Fallen. Paranormal romance. What did I say? I don't know.
Yes. Okay. I think that the exception to short snippets from the dream approach, I think a good exception is when something is we're supposed to think it's a dream sequence, and then we find out that it happened in real life. And so, because sometimes you have that, like someone is walking in their sleep type thing, or someone's like living like in a dream world, but it's just as real as that world, the dreams bleed into reality, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Then they can remember every detail. And then it makes sense for them to wake up and be like, this dream was different than all of the others. This one I could remember in like really fine detail, everything that happened, because it illustrates the fact that, and it kind of hints at the fact that you haven't told your readers yet that something real is happening. It's not just a dream. But if you, for the most part, if you make it like a big long thing and then it didn't end up being real, it kind of feels like it was a waste of time.
Yeah, you feel cheated. You're like, I spent all that time on this and you're telling me it doesn't matter.
You're telling me that none of that actually happened. Get to the hint, drop the hint fast, if that's your purpose. And I mean, I like dream sequences. It's hard to take issue with them unless they're long or at the beginning of the book. But I just think that conciseness is always better. And I think that I think trying to like mirror the experience of a dream in real life is the best way to give your readers the sensation of your character dreaming. So like short form stuff, just smaller, or chunk it up, that kind of thing.
I don't know. I'm trying to think. So dream sequences sometimes bother me because I feel like they can be like cheap gimmicks to give us information. Like there's no reason the character would be dreaming this, but we're supposed to know it. So I'm thinking about like, the dreams where it'll start and then they don't dream the whole dream at once. They just dream the dream in pieces. Is that what you're talking about? Or do you mean like different dreams entirely? Because I can sometimes get annoyed by the dreams in pieces, because that's not really how dreams work. I very rarely pick up a dream that I was already having later on.
No, I mean, like if they're remembering a dream, they should remember it in pieces.
Okay.
They shouldn't remember the entirety of the dream. Yes. And so it depends it depends how you're delivering the dream sequence, because if it's like present tense and they're dreaming it, then you can just write out the dream, but still try to keep it less than 3 pages. But if it's something like a past tense dream that they've had, then like, keep it short and sweet. And then I mean, you can even like call your reader's attention back to it by like the next day or something, your character being like, I remembered this or that thing from the dream, but make sure it's like a small, tiny kind of pseudo random detail.
Right.
Like you would actually remember from your dream, even if it by random detail, it's something that's actually significant, but it just seems random.
Yeah.
But I think kind of like you're saying, it can be gimmicky if it doesn't move the plot forward. If it's not realistic for the character and there's like an actual like background reason that they would be having that dream. Like, so don't like put just complete like random nonsense. Like there needs to be elements of their life and things that they know or their memory or whatever. And it needs to have some relevance to the plot. Well, I kind of think that about most things. If it is not directly it does not directly involve either moving the plot forward or character development that's going to move the plot forward, then don't include it anywhere in the book.
Yeah, that's a good rule of thumb.
That's what I think for the most part. And I think that applies to dream sequences too.
So like a couple examples, like off the cuff, I read a book once and I'm not going to remember the title at all, but it was about a character with sleeping beauty syndrome. Do you know that? So it's like where they'll sleep for months at a time. Like they legitimately do not wake up. That is like, that's an exception. Or Wake, which was a series, again, I'm not going to remember the author, but it was called Wake, where she goes into people's dreams. And it's like a magical realism paranormal thing where she goes into people's dreams. So a lot of the story takes place with her getting to know people in their dreams.
Yeah, that's a huge exception.
Yeah. Or like you were saying, like if you have a dream world and maybe the dream world is real, but the character doesn't know that. And so they're figuring out like, wait, things like the laws of physics work here. Why is that? Or it's too connected to my real life. They know things they shouldn't know, or they don't know things they should know, that kind of stuff. I think those are all kind of exceptions. So like, you have to take into account the premise of your book. So if dreams or sleep or whatever play a really big role in your theme or your plot or anything like that, I think there are going to be exceptions there. But talking just generally normal books, dream sequences can feel kind of like cheap ways to deliver information unless it is very reasonable. So like in Fallen, because we're talking about this, Luce is remembering things because like she has a past life. It makes sense that she would have those memories. She's not remembering things from other people. Like it's not even a magical power or anything. It's like an actual hint that she has had past lives before. So it works there. Like you said, maybe it's a little too much, but it generally works.
Well, I think they just brought it up like 3 or 4 times, and I would have been like, I think like maybe 2 times. I think it would have like held my attention more because I was just like, oh, she had another dream about an angel boy. Moving on. Right. But like I think twice instead of 4 times would have just been a better balance. But yeah, like you said, like it was completely reasonable. I took no issue with the content of her dreams at all. It made a lot of sense, and it supported all of the hints that we'd been getting up to that point that was a reincarnation of, and she's had all these past lives with that same angel boy. So
right. And I just, oh no, I hit a point.
Oh no. Welcome to my world.
I know. What was it? What was I saying?
No, I finally get to write. I was going to say KGB. What I mean is Chris's goldfish brain because I write AGB for Ash's goldfish brain.
That's about how it feels right now. I don't remember. Maybe I'll remember it later, but I had a different point. Let's move on to that point. So when you're writing a dream sequence, I tend to believe that you should use italics. Do you agree or disagree? This was my
next point too.
Okay.
100% agree. You guys, when you switch the type of delivery format for your story, if it's thoughts, if it's a dream, if it's something that we don't hear out loud, and it's not happening in the real world in real time, put it in italics.
Yes.
Put it in italics. Okay, maybe some people just don't know that. It's really weird to me when people who are avid readers and then they write something and then they don't seem to know it because I'm like, I just picked that up. That was not a thing I learned.
I just learned that by reading.
Yeah, I just learned that by reading. But in case you didn't know, I'm not yelling at you guys. I'm yelling at some of my former editing clients that I would just repeatedly was shocked by, but like it makes it really difficult too. Just even as an editor, and I'm editing for that specifically, it was like jarred out of what I was trying to do. It is so jarring to suddenly realize that what you've been reading is a thought or a dream and not reality in the book. So using italics is the best, easiest, fastest way to say, hey, this isn't actually happening in the character's real life in this moment, or this is not happening out loud. It is the fastest, easiest way to do it. It's not jarring. It's simple. It kind of mimics the way that we speak things out loud in dialogue and then have internal thoughts. Like you can use it like that. You can use a line of dialogue, then a line of italics in thought. And then you can follow it up, like have some more stuff and follow it up with a dream in italics. Like italics are amazing. Please
They're
use
like
them.
Essentially they indicate internal.
Yes,
usually.
they typically indicate the internal, that something internal is happening, that it's not happening on the outside.
Yeah.
Please use them.
Yeah. I think I remembered my point. So, and it's related. When you're writing a dream sequence, 90% of the time, we should know it's a dream sequence. So there are going to be times, like if you've ever read, what is it called? The Unbecoming of Mara Dyer. So this book is kind of like, she's going a little crazy and she's not sure what reality is and what the dream is. That makes sense. You don't want to put that in italics because you don't want the readers to know if it's real or not real. Yeah. But 90% of the time, we should know that it's a dream. Yeah. If you're going back and forth between a dream world and this world, if it's, they're sleeping and they're just having a dream, whatever, we as readers need to know it's a dream, even if the character doesn't know. The character can be like, going on for a while and like thinking it's real. And then they're like, oh, wait, I'm in a dream. But the reader should always know if we're in a dream or not, because I can't think of an example of when anyone has tried to do this, but I will caution people against doing it. I don't think the twist should be that something is a dream, like in like the beginning and that kind of stuff. Don't make that your twist. The twist should be the main plot. It should just kind of like the backup, the foreshadowing, the details that kind of go along with it. I don't know that dreams are ever, or they're rarely enough to be the main conflict. Even if you're saying this dream world exists, then there's a conflict in the dream world that is the actual conflict. The dream itself is not the conflict. So you don't want to put too much emphasis on it. Like we're saying, be short and sweet. Don't use it too often. You don't want that to be the main / only thing your reader is really thinking about and remembering. You want it to be just kind of a support for the main conflict. So indicate to us if we are in a dream by italics, usually. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't do all caps. I wouldn't do underline. No. I wouldn't do anything else. Italics is, I think it's the industry standard. I would assume.
I would assume so too, because having read many books, that is how it is used.
Right. So don't be afraid to indicate it unless you have a Mara Dyer situation where maybe in horror or thrillers or certain kinds of paranormal books, you don't want readers to know if it's a dream or not because the character doesn't know and there's some kind of twist coming up that would ruin. But 90% of the time, don't try to fake us out with a dream sequence. We should know if we're in a dream. The reader should know if we're in a dream.
I think it just goes back to this, like what I feel like is just like a kind of like ruling like guideline for writing is you don't want to ever intentionally trick your readers. And that's not, people are like, oh no, but I want there to be twists. Okay.
That's not the same thing.
You don't want it to feel like you're intentionally tricking your readers. You can give them a really great reveal, but only if they don't understand, like if they don't see it all the way up into the twist, because the writing so naturally leads them to not quite see it. You want it to feel natural. You don't want them to get to the twist and then go, okay, well, I feel like I was walked the opposite direction this whole time. So of course I didn't get it, because that's insulting. So don't like do something just to lead them the wrong direction. Like nothing that you include in your book should be just to turn your readers the wrong way, because that's going to be really annoying. It should be you subtly leading them along the whole time, and then they get to the twist and they're like, oh my God, how did that happen?
Yeah, they're piecing it together the whole time. And then the twist is just like, maybe it's slightly different than what they were expecting, or maybe it just fills in all the gaps, but it should be mostly not necessarily expected or predictable, but it should make sense within what they've been reading so far.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, okay, what do you think about books? So this is kind of like when the whole book's a dream sequence and you get to the end and they're like, and it was all a dream.
You mean Alice in Wonderland? My favorite book. That one's not in italics, but again, the dream is the main kind of thing for that book.
So it's an exception to all the other rules, but I am just going to say I hate it, because it's the same effect as the amnesia trope, where basically nothing that we read matters because none of it happened. Okay. And that's just a personal preference. So that one is not any kind of writing advice, guys. I just hate the whole book was a dream. I hate that. This is just a little bit more about Ash.
I don't know any other example aside from Alice in Wonderland, though. Is there?
Yeah, I
Can
can
you
think of a
anything
few.
else?
They're usually
Okay.
retellings of Alice in Wonderland or something that's
Yeah.
supposed to feel kind of like that vibe. Like they're not the most common. And they're probably more than I've read because I don't like them. I get mad. I'm like, why did you trick? It feels like a trick again. I don't like to feel tricked. But anyways, more back on to the topic I wanted to say about dream sequences is I think that we as writers probably most often use them as a foreshadowing tool. And I think that that's a great way to think about it. Like I would think of it as a tool to move your plot forward and to foreshadow stuff. I don't really think it's good for character development. I mentioned it earlier.
Because it's not
hard
real
to do because it's not real. Exactly. Yeah. So I would say only include it if it moves the plot forward and or include some foreshadowing, because typically foreshadowing is also kind of moving the plot forward. If you found a way to make it help your characters develop, interesting. I'd like to see it because that's hard to imagine.
It's probably a hit or miss type of situation. You either really nailed it or it's not working.
Really missed it. Yeah, it's one of those things. But I think that maybe the best way to think about it is it's not like an approach to writing necessarily, dream sequences. It's like a tool belt in your like little foreshadowing toolkit. So like there's a lot of ways you can foreshadow things. So just like if you're like, I need to foreshadow this thing that's going to happen, or I want to foreshadow the big twist more. I want to foreshadow some deep dark secret about this other character or some information that the main character doesn't know that they know. Like that's when you can, pick out a dream sequence or pick out like someone acting kind of shifty in the background or pick out like a specific item that's kind of like center focus for just a second and then we pan away, like that kind of thing. So like just add it to your tool belt. Dream sequences are really useful as a tool, not for like long form content. They should only be used with a purpose is largely how I feel, which is also why I don't like it when like the whole book was a dream. I'm like, what was the point?
Right. What did we gain here? I think it's also interesting to think about. So to like the Sweven point, it's not just dreams, but like visions and like prophetic stuff going on. If your character is not psychic, if that is not a thing that they have going for them, it's really weird for them to be dreaming the climax before it happens. I see this every once in a while where they're like, they defeat the villain in a certain way in the dream. And then that's what happens in real life. And it's like, but unless they're psychic, they have no way of being able to predict that. I understand maybe it comes across as foreshadowing, but your foreshadowing still has to make sense given who your character is and the world. And so unless your character is psychic, and they could absolutely be psychic, maybe they can see the future, maybe there is something like that going on, and maybe those dreams are hints at that. Maybe things from the dreams start to kind of come true in real life periodically, so that when that big event happens, we kind of see how it came full circle. But if that's not a trait or a skill that your main character has, or that anyone else would be affecting on them, don't do it, because at that point it's not foreshadowing. It's just like, I don't know, it doesn't match it. You can't, I don't predict the future in my dreams, right? Anything that I've ever predicted is really just a matter of random chance, right? Like I predict I'm going to get up at 9 and it's 9:01 when I wake up. That's not me being psychic. That's, it's just like happen chance. It's going to happen sometimes. But I'm not predicting like the way I'm going to die or the way someone else is going to die or who's going to walk through my front door or anything like that. And if I did, that's got to be a plot point. You've got to make that part of the character or the world in some way.
I agree.
So
I think when it comes to using like visions, like your character is psychic, I think it's also important that no single character should have all of the pieces. And that can be where it's tricky when you have a psychic character or someone who can kind of like experience premonitions of any kind, be it a dream or a vision or whatever else. So I think a really great way to use those is to use those to keep leading your readers in the right direction, but like to the wrong conclusion. If that makes sense. Like maybe your psychic character is seeing the way that the climax happens, but just in flashes. And so then your readers are going to make a natural assumption based on those, and your characters also. And so if you can find a way to make all of those premonitions true and make them all happen in the climax and then reach a different ending than the one that everyone was predicting, that is a great way where you have been respectful of your readers' intelligence the entire time, which you've given them a really great twist. And I think that that's a great, if any kind of like, with any kind of like supernatural powers that involve any kind of like dream sequences, telepathy, that kind of thing, where it feels like a character has more pieces than the other characters have, you should still have them building the wrong puzzle with it, like right up until the end.
They're
and then
not
you're
omnipotent
like, oh, no.
or omniscient.
No. Yeah, exactly. So I think I think that can be visions and telepathy and dream sequences. They can be a great way to foreshadow stuff. They can be a great tool to like not mislead, but like misconstrue kind of, which is fun and exciting because your readers want a twist. Like that's why I mean, most of us do, right? Like otherwise, what are you reading? Like a cozy mystery, which are also delightful. But when I go to a cozy mystery, I'm like, I want to sort this out very quickly. And I don't want to be anything to be misconstrued. I don't want to be like spun around at the end.
Yeah. Well, that's a genre difference. Like I do think dream sequences are going to have different places in dream sequences. I think they happen in YA paranormal and YA paranormal romance a lot. They can happen in fantasy where people
in there too.
Where anyone is psychic or where there's any magic going on, you have a little more freedom with the dream sequence because it'll kind of make sense. If it's a murder mystery, I don't know that I would use a dream sequence to indicate the end twist. I don't know that. I mean, maybe they can be having dreams along the way that are hinting at a secret suspicion they have or something like that. But the role of the dream sequence is going to be different. The more contemporary, the more real life your story is, I would say the less you should use dream sequences, unless it is like a memory. Maybe this character is traumatized and so they're having a recurring dream about this thing. Maybe there's a monster in the dream that represents something else. That can work, but the dream can't be prophetic at that point then. And if you're in some kind of a fantasy, maybe even a sci-fi does it a lot where like alien species will have the ability to like, project dreams into people's minds and stuff. That totally works. But that's because there's a futuristic society with different species or in a fantasy society with different species. So you should take into account what genre you're in. Is it going to be the kind of thing people are going to expect and like out of that genre? And B, does it fit with the world you're creating? So that's also important. Genre is basically always a consideration you have to make. I realize I say that about everything now.
But it's true. Like I'm thinking about like a lot of like paranormal, especially dark paranormal, like fantasy. I feel like you have a little more wiggle room, like you said, with dream sequences. But I do feel like you can maybe go a little bit longer if you are using your dream sequence in like a dark paranormal, because you want to get like the gritty horror of the situation across. Because very few things in reality can be as effectively terrifying as like a nightmare. And so I think you have a little more wiggle room there. So if you want to go beyond like the average 3 pages, I think that's okay. Should it be a whole chapter?
It's a super short chapter.
If it's a short chapter, you could maybe get away with that if the genre calls for it. So
but nightmares are kind of a different story, because I would think I don't read a lot of thrillers or horror books, but I would think that in those, nightmares could play a really big role and they would contribute to plot. Because if you're in like a haunted house type of situation and you have to sleep and you're having nightmares, that's going to affect your psychological state of mind. That is going to affect things. Maybe the ghosts in the house or whatever it is are giving you nightmares. Maybe your imagination is running wild with what could happen. Maybe the dreams are actually worse than reality. I think there are some horror books that have done that, but nightmares are a little bit of a different beast, because if you're intending to scare the reader, then they still need to be plot relevant, but they can be a little more like plot deviant, if that makes sense. They don't necessarily have to fall in the linear line of the plot in the same way.
Because they're serving another purpose besides just moving the plot forward. They're also, they're setting the tone, which is why like I think like, be it a realistic book or a fantasy, if it's like supposed to be really, really dark and scary, if that's the tone, then I think you can get away with the nightmare. I actually think that nightmares are done better more often than normal dream sequences, because they can reveal past trauma. Because they typically reveal past trauma, or that something, or it's whatever spooky thing is going on that we kind of have a hint of, or scary thing is going on, is usually maximized in the dream. And then overall, just like nightmares just give you a dark, gritty feeling, which is the point of reading those books. And so it is so effective at conveying tone and like immersing your reader in the feeling, because typically like if you're reading horror or like something really dark, paranormal, you're reading, part of why you're reading is not just a great story, but for the feeling that you get. Like I read mysteries in the fall because of the feeling that it gives me and the setting. So that's why I like when it's set in like an autumn time in the book too, like, because it's for a feeling. So I think that that's something where like dreams are so random and can be so varied that they don't give anyone one specific feeling. You can even try and convey it, and like they did in the Fallen dreams. And I was just like, I'm not feeling it. I've never been flown around by an angel boy, so I'm not feeling whatever I'm supposed to feel from this dream. No, I haven't.
Crazy, Ash.
Yeah,
you haven't lived.
I haven't lived. But I think that maybe that's the other thing too that we haven't really talked about with dreams, is that dreams, good or bad, typically evoke really strong emotions in us. And I think that however you write your dream or vision or whatever should evoke a lot of emotion, but it's a lot easier to evoke the dark, scary fears that we all have in common than to evoke the feeling that a character has in a specific situation, a specific type of dream. So I think that that's why everything's a little more flexible with nightmares. It will give your book a darker tone though. So like, just be aware of that. Because if you're not going for that, you're going for like a middle ground fantasy, you can maybe do like a really short nightmare that's not too gritty and too graphic.
Right.
But like, or you could do a dream. But like, again, the problem with dream sequences is it's going to be really hard to nail down the specific feeling that you want the character and the reader to feel at the same time. So
yeah, I think nightmares too, just in my experience, nightmares tend to have more of a direct plot than just regular dreams. Like if you're having a good dream, sometimes you skip around and you're like, this is great. I'm having the time of my life. I don't care. That's nightmares tend to have cause and effect going on. They do. So they can feel more real, and they can, they could be longer, and they could be more of a, is this real? Is this not kind of situation? Because there isn't going to be as much of a significant indication that it's not real. So because they kind of follow that more direct plot, you can kind of like, you don't have to piece it together. It can be all one story. It can all, fit together in that one dream. It doesn't have to, you don't have to reveal things as you go on or remember only specific details. Like I think people probably remember more details about their nightmares than anything else.
100%.
So those become kind of looser details. So yeah, you definitely want to get the feel right. Don't put a nightmare in a book that you intend to be lighthearted. But it's easier to use nightmares than dream sequences. I think they come across less cheesy. I think they produce more of a consistent vibe and tone for the story. So I think they probably just work a little better, a little easier.
I think as like just general rules of advice when you're trying to write a dream sequence or a nightmare sequence, I think it's important to keep in mind, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think for the most part, like a dream, be it neutral or be a good dream, tends to like usurp the rules of reality. So like there's no gravity, or there's a lot of light everywhere, or there's something unnatural.
You're changing location.
They're changing locations really quickly. You're flying suddenly. You can swim underwater and you don't have to breathe. So you're usurping the rules of reality that we know. And in nightmares, it tends to be exaggerating the rules of reality. Like you don't just have gravity. Your feet are so heavy you can't move. Like it's like all of the things that make reality hard or strenuous are like maximized. So like nightmares are like rule heavy, rule driven, like not just like the rules that we have in reality. And then if you make them worse, if you make them even more inconvenient than they are, and dreams tend to eliminate all of the rules entirely. And so I think if you're just like trying to like find like the main difference between the two and kind of trying to decide which one you want to use, like just keep that in mind. Because if like you want to use the dream to illustrate the fact that your character feels restricted or trapped in one sense or another, well, those are like rule-based feelings in a reality where we have these things that constrict us. So that's probably going to be more of a nightmare. That's a little harder to evoke in like a standard dream. But if you want to evoke that your character is feeling like untethered, then dream. It's a dream. And so then the dream, so everything about the dream should follow the general theme of rules don't apply here.
That's totally true. I've never thought of it that way, but nightmares exaggerate things, dreams do away with them entirely.
Just eliminate them entirely. But a dream, you're like, we don't need gravity. We don't need oxygen.
I went through a legitimate period of time, like a week of my life, where I legitimately thought I could fly because I'd been having so many flying dreams. And I was like, this has got to mean something. And the dreams were so vivid that I was like, I can definitely fly. And then I tried and I was like, no, I can't fly, but we'll see. Maybe I'll develop it later in life.
I went through a period of time for like years when I was probably like 14, like maybe like somewhere between 13 and 15. I would have these dreams all the time that I could lift objects with my mind, but it's like inspired a book series. But the way that it worked was so interesting because I still remember because it felt so real. So for years, I just kept thinking I'm going to suddenly one day, and it's why I still kind of think like if we could tap into the full power of our brain, could we like telekinetically move things? Because like the way that it would work. And so nobody take my idea. TM, this is my idea about a telekinetic character, but she can only lift things as heavy as she could lift like with her hands. Yeah. Because that's what the feeling in the dream was. It was like I could like lift something telekinetically or whatever. I'm stretching out my hand like a nerd right now. Like I love it.
When I move things with my mind.
I move things with my mind. But anyways, I would like feel the weight as if I was lifting it up, and I would feel like in my arms like I was lifting something. And so anyways, so that was I was so realistic, and I kept dreaming it so many times. But there were a few years where I was like, one of these days I'm gonna do it.
this has got to be real, right?
Part of me still kind of feels like if I could just tap into more of my brain, maybe I could do it, because it felt so realistic. I was like, if we were gonna be telekinetic, this is what it would feel like. Because whether it actually uses your muscles or not, I think we're so used to using our muscles that kind of like the phantom situation, like a phantom limb situation, we would feel like we're feeling the weight because our brain like looks at it and we're like, I know about how heavy that book is.
Yeah.
Anyways, so
cool.
Interesting. But TM, it's my idea.
It belongs to Ash. This is our proof.
Someone is like, we've all had this idea. Right. It's one of those things where it's like, how can you fight for intellectual property when we've all had the same idea?
I know, right?
Man. But
it's crazy.
Anyways, that was one thing too. That was weird too, because it like breaks the rules of reality and that I'm telekinetic, but I also has just a little hint of reality in the sense that I was like, I can feel the picking it up.
Yeah.
But it was still a usurpation of the rules of reality, because I broke a rule of reality. It didn't get worse. If I couldn't pick up the book at all because it was just too heavy suddenly, well, that's a nightmare. That's like making the rules so much harder.
And if you can't pick anything up with your mind at all, you might not be dreaming. Unfortunately.
And I think maybe a difference between dreams and visions too, I'm thinking, because what you're saying keeps coming back to me about nightmares typically have their own plot. It's true, because like in a nightmare, like you're running from something's trying to get you, like beginning to end, there's a kind of plot you can follow. Dreams tend to be, you're here, you're there, you're in a different place entirely, you're doing something different, you're breathing underwater. It's like it's like a random chain, not even a chain, it's like just like a random assortment of events that are grouped together. I think a vision is like a dream in the sense that it typically usurps reality a little bit, but it has a plot. And so if it's a dream with any kind of like plot consistency, like an actual chain of events, cause and effect, then it's a vision, not a dream.
Yeah. Cool. Any other points? I feel like that was good.
That was good. Yeah. My brain only goes full force or not at all. It keeps stopping to like gear up.
Right. It's like, all right, rest. Now all the words.
Now everything that we could possibly think about this topic.
Right.
Yeah. Well, anyways, how's writing been going for you?
Good. I've done a little writing. It's not like extensive yet. I finished my read through of what I had so far, and now I'm writing new stuff. So that's fun. Funny story. I queried a couple agents, and one of them, like her on the website or whatever, it said that she would start accepting on June 1st. And I found this out on like May 20th or whatever. So it's like, I am going to be the first. I'm going to be the first person in her inbox like ever. And I was so excited about it. And so I did that, and I stayed up till 2 a.m. because they're on New York time, and it didn't open at midnight. It opened at like, I don't know, whatever time they get to work maybe. And so I sent the query, and her response is in my email inbox, but I'm too scared to look at it. So
open it now.
I don't want to open it now. I can't do it. I'm just like, I feel like she would be a good fit. Obviously, I've felt that before.
Gotta feel that. Yeah.
I don't know. And she's a new agent, so I'm like, maybe she'll be
building
more
her list
open to
actively.
things.
Yeah.
Or maybe she'll be pickier. Who knows?
I don't know. Well, at least she's not going to be like too similar to things I already have in my list, because I hate that response. I'm like, well, no, I don't feel original.
Yeah. What do you mean by that? That's a rude thing to say.
Yeah. That's funny.
Anyway, so I'm just afraid I'll open it maybe tonight or tomorrow, but it was so fast because it was today, right? I sent it this morning.
Oh my God.
So I'm
That's
like,
why you didn't sleep.
I know. typically when you send a query, you have at least a week or so before you can expect a response. And for me, that just gives me the time to like calm down and not get my hopes up. But when I went into it today, I was like, oh no, there's no time to calm down. I need to force myself to calm down. So it could be total bad news. It could be good news. Who knows? I will tell you next week.
I can't even remember the last time that I felt hope in regard to query letters.
I'm just sitting here in misery all the time.
Depressed. Like I said, I need to be medicated. No, I'm just kidding. No, not because I'm not like hopeful about being successful. I still have plenty of that, probably more than I should rightly have. Right. But it's like hope bordering on confidence, which is delightful feeling. But do I have any rights to it? I don't care. I don't care.
I don't care.
But query letters, I typically feel like they're not going to reply, because you also have to know when you're querying that like 80% just won't reply at all, and that's your rejection for the most part. A few of those will say if you look at their submission guidelines, they'll say if you don't hear back from me within a certain time frame, you can email again. So some of that 80% will be some of those. So you do have to keep track, like keep detailed notes on whoever you submit to, along with the dates of submission, so then you know to go back and send it again if you don't get a response. But I typically just expect no response. So it's not like I'm really expecting rejection. I'm just expecting nothing.
Well, it's almost better to get nothing than an outright rejection, because the outright rejection is like no hope. When you just don't hear from them, you're like, well, maybe that just took them 6 months, and then you kind of forget about it and you move on to new things.
That's funny.
But I don't know.
No, I like to check things off my list so I can feel like, okay, and on to the next step. And so I get mad when I'm like, just tell me.
Yeah.
I don't like the unknown. I also don't like waiting because I'm a child. So I'm like, yes or no. The answer, just tell me yes or no. Just tell me yes or no. I'll take my book somewhere else. As I already am, because they get like hundreds of queries every day, and I'm just a drop in the pool. But that's exciting. It's exciting to see you feel like nervous, excited to open a query. I just can't relate to the last time I felt that way, just because it's become so common to just be like, and I may never hear back from that person.
Right. It's so true. It's like the Schrodinger's cat right now. It could be alive, it could be dead. I just don't want to know yet. You know what I mean? So that's where I am.
That's funny.
But
what about you? Have more self-control. I just always open mine right away.
Thank you. I'm just scared. Go on.
Well, I'm trying desperately to get back to the query process, but I have to. I think I mentioned last time I finally figured out what I need to do to a book that I wrote a while ago.
Yes.
And so fingers crossed, knock on wood, you guys, so far I've actually followed through and started making changes, not been like, hey, I know what to do, fix it, and then put the book down for 6 months, because I'm actually like, I'm being more disciplined with my time. And also a big part of it is I'm basically reducing the amount of things I'll let myself do before the end of the day. So typically like I use my lunch break and the time before work, and I'll be like, I'm going to do a bunch of chores and get a bunch of stuff done. But then what happens is I get off work at the end of the day and I'm so exhausted because I burnt myself out on like the daily tasks that I've assigned myself, that I don't have the energy to write. So I basically now have to pick one thing, and it can take no longer than 30 minutes. It cannot be a task that I can complete that would take me more than 30 minutes to complete. And I will go and I will do that on my lunch break. Good. And everything else is just going to have to wait. And I've been doing that all week, and I've written every day, because after work,
you do have self-control.
I do. But I had to like be really intentional, because I was like, I just need more self-discipline to sit down and make myself right. And then I was like, I don't think that's my problem. I think my problem is I'm just burnt out. So now I do kind of have to use self-discipline, but it's like not in the way I like to make myself right. I mean, a little bit of that, like anyone has to, but when there's TV instead, which is nice. But I mean, mostly it was just like, I needed to unburden my schedule in what tiny ways I could. I can't actually remove any of my responsibilities, which I complained about like several episodes ago, because I do still have more on my plate than it would be nice to have if I wanted to be a full-time writer, and I do. But I can like take tinier bites. And so I'm trying to take tinier bites so I still have energy, and it's working. And I wrote in a new scene, and I figured out for all 4 books, I decided it's going to be a 4-book series, because I realized I need 4 books to get to the end, to the climax of the overarching conflict. So I've got the overarching conflict. I've got it nailed down for the first book. I've got the characters adjusted. Now I even thought of one character. I need to make a bigger character and give more background. And so now I'm writing in scenes, and I'm seeing the word count go up, and I'm like, oh, we got to get the word count back down. So I'm like adding things that once I finish this go through, I'm going to have to go in and I want to add a couple more elements of some foreshadowing earlier on, but I don't want to mess up my vibe right now. So I'm just like, I'll go back and I'll add this in because there's a little, but I want some more. And then other things I have to remember, like I'm changing one of my like magical terms to a different term. So I need to go back and remember to change that.
Right.
Yeah. And then I'm gonna have to do like a full, really hardcore edit again because I'm changing so much. And then at the end, well, right before that one, I'm gonna have to go through and just cut material to get back down at least to where it started before I was editing it again. So much work, but it is so exciting because I might be done writing new scenes in. I'm basically rewriting each scene, but it's different than coming up with content just out of the blue, which is nice because I'm a little bit out of practice doing that because I need it's also nice because I need like really big chunks of time to get into a flow to just create brand new content. But if I only have like an hour or two, I can write like a scene, like I can write a new scene and I can edit old content, but it's not even editing. It's like rewriting old content because I have somewhere to start. I can do it even if I don't have
like break
time.
It up with your time easier that way. You don't have to keep the same train of thought.
Exactly. It's also why I think that I'm making way more progress on this than the other book that I'm working on, my main whip, because that one I need a big chunk. Like I need days of uninterrupted time to actually make progress. But I also realized that this book in no way contradicts the universe of that book. So I think I'm going to imply that they're in the same universe.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That's my new favorite thing
that authors do. I've never had the opportunity to do it, but that's the thing is I love when authors do it. And usually my books are all so different from each other. I couldn't do it, but I'm like, no, hang on. This is like, wait. This, oh my God, I just realized in my main whip that one of the characters is supposed to be from this like mythical version of Ireland, which is what my book is set in. And so now I'm like, hang on.
Yes.
He's
I got chills. I love it.
This place. It's so good. But in no way would readers need to read this book and that book to understand.
Exactly.
Things.
They're separate.
Yeah, exactly. Like they wouldn't even know. And so anyways, I'm just excited because crossover potential is fun. I just never thought I would have it for any of my series. And I don't know, maybe that's also what this was missing. I don't know. I'm just excited. So I've actually been getting writing done and I just want to get to the query process. I know I saw you post something on TikTok about it being your least favorite part.
Yeah.
But I like it because I like to check things off my list and because I like to feel like the forward motion and querying, like for the first like 6 months of querying a book, it just feels like constant forward motion.
That's
true.
And
then after 6 months, it's like,
all my hope is gone. The world is a dark, sad place. What do I do?
The forward motion stops abruptly at about 6 months of querying. And it doesn't mean that you give up querying. It means you take a break and you turn to something else for a little while. But I like the querying process. So
interesting.
I don't mind like researching agents. Like I on Upwork, you guys can find me on Upwork, and I actually offer a package that specifically is helping people revise their query letters. And then for like an added fee, like I will research 50 literary agents in their field for them. Because I like to do it. I don't mind. And so I put their name, I put the agent's name in an Excel sheet and the agency and the submission requirements and the things about their genre and then a few personal details. I'm like, I'll put all of it together because I know so many people hate doing it. But I have done this hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of times, which I know you have too. And so it's almost something like that I'm so good at doing because I've done it so much that it's like second nature to know how. And because so many people don't know where to start, I'm like, I am happy to help you. If I can't achieve success in this area yet, maybe you can.
Let me help you to do it.
Yeah, exactly. So anyways, fun stuff. But
nice.
I feel like that was long-winded, but I'm just really excited to be writing again. It feels so good.
Awesome.
I just realized I haven't been like super depressed in a few days. I wonder
if it's related.
I wonder if it's related to the fact that I've been writing for a few days in a row.
Yeah.
It's funny how that works.
I always get kind of depressed around querying time. So that would explain potentially why I've been an emotional roller coaster too. So
I get on like almost like a manic high when I first start querying. I'm like, the next one's gonna be a success.
It's like the like 4 seconds after I send the query is like panic, like, oh my gosh, should I spell my name wrong? And then the next 10 minutes are like, I nailed that query. Everything is great. And then from then on, I'm like, ignore all feelings, just go cold. focus on something else, that's the only way you will survive.
That is so funny. I go through the process of as I'm researching the agent, I'm like, they'll totally love this book. They're going to want it. Then I send the query and I'm like, they're not going to reply at all.
Right.
And then for absolutely no reason, with no earned confidence at all, like the next day I'll be like, I'm going to get published. Like, I don't know. I don't know who's going to like this book, but someone's gonna. And for no reason at all, I'm like completely confident about it. And then 6 months later, I'm like, back to the drawing board.
It's a roller coaster. It's an actual roller coaster.
It really is,
I've been getting really excited about writing the query letters for the books I'm working. So I have the book that I wrote and it's just waiting for me to edit it. And then the one I'm currently working on. And I'm getting really excited about writing the query letters for them. Yeah. But like, I can't send them yet because they're not ready. Like they have to be done before you send it. So I'm just, I could write it, but I
hate writing my query letters. I love editing other people's query letters.
If we would combine our skills, I think we would just be so successful.
I need you to help me craft my query letter. And see, I'm really great with other people's. It's just like, because I'm too close to my own work that I'm like, I don't know what's interesting enough to put on the back jacket because I know everything. That's why I think I'm really good at other people's query letters and not mine at all. And then, so you can help me with my query and I'll help you send queries to agents.
I love that. That sounds great.
Sounds great to me.
We are the dream team.
Seriously, I've rewritten the query letter for this book. God, so many times. It's awful. And so I still I use it as a template for when I'm working on other people's, like when they hire me for that, because I'm like, I know I've included all the elements in here, but I still hate mine. And then I'll write theirs and I'm like, this is amazing. This is the best query letter I've ever seen.
I am queen of querying, and only when it's
not me. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Anyways, anything else you want to share with our writer friends?
Nope, that's it. That's all I got. As though that wasn't enough.
Really covered the productive at once. Hooray! Yeah. Well, if you guys want to chat query letters or the query process or writing or dream sequences or Sweven. Yeah. I was like Sweven.
Sweven.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's not that, but you can say it however you want because I am not one to talk about pronunciation. So on.
How do you say Taco Bell?
Taco Bell.
Oh, you say it so wrong.
I say it correctly.
Whatever. If you guys know the proper pronunciation with the correct emphasis for the phrase Taco Bell.
Taco Bell.
No, Taco Bell. Wait, did I do what you did?
You did it.
You're brainwashing me. If you guys know.
I have you in my thrall.
Oh, ew. I hate that phrase. Oh, man. But if you guys know where what the correct emphasis is for that restaurant, please do let us know. And let's talk writing and other things. For Taco Bell. Oh, no, that's better. I think that one might be the right one.
Yeah, it's got to be it.
Anyways, you guys can follow us on social media. We are on Instagram and TikTok. We are the Scripturian Society. TikTok's lots of fun writer-ish video content from Karissa. We got a lot of people.
It's been a good week for me.
Yeah, shout out to all of our new TikTok listeners. If you've made it all the way from TikTok over to the pod, welcome. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Karissa just texted me all of a sudden. She's like, so we got how many people following us all of a
1,300.
1,300 of you.
Yeah.
So thank you guys. And may I ask why? I mean, I'm appreciative. I'm just curious. I'm like, what did you like, and what can we do it for you again?
It was the controversial TikTok I posted.
The controversial TikTok that wasn't controversial at all.
I assume many people agreed with it, and they're like, yeah, this is a person I want to follow. And if so, welcome, because I absolutely believe that. Yeah. But I hope none of you are assuming that I'm going to get more controversial over time, because it gave me a lot of anxiety. Even just, it wasn't controversial, but like 3 people were like, this is not true. And I'm like, I have a degree. It's true.
You're like, I'm going to pull the degree card. I'm going to pull an education card right now.
It's just like, it really doesn't happen to me often, but every once in a while, someone on social media will say comment at me something about like literature. And they're like, well, actually it's this. And I'm like, no, it's not. I have a degree in this. I know what I'm talking about. And I don't pull that card with anything else. It is the one thing I am an expert at. Yeah. So
I feel that. Yeah. It's so rare that you get to pull that card too. Mm-hmm. It's almost like you kind of wait for the moment where you can fully justify it. True. Also, But yeah, when someone tells you something and you're like, actually, that is factually inaccurate, and I pay a lot of money to learn that I can prove to you that that's inaccurate.
Pay a lot of money to get to say this.
That is not true. But anyway, so if you guys want to follow Carissa's controversy, I believe that the video was just her saying something about books should have a certain standard of quality.
Yep.
Successful books should be of a certain quality level. I'm not sure how that's controversial.
I don't know either. It's
at all.
I won't go into it. It was a whole thing.
Maybe we're pretentious for saying that.
I don't think so, but maybe.
True. I don't know. Oh well. So if you guys enjoy controversy of that nature, which is not
controversy at all, but made controversial by people who want to make controversy, I assume. I don't know.
I did tag something controversy today on TikTok, not just for the algorithm, but because it was about Fahrenheit 451 and like society. And I went on one of my like society shows.
I know what you're talking about. I don't even think that was controversial.
I don't think it is either, but I feel like people who enjoy controversy would enjoy that. And it's really me saying, actually, there's no controversy. We pretty much all agree on this thing. But I'm also kind of curious if someone's going to try and find a way to fight with it, because I really like it when I say something that applies to everyone and someone's like, no. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. This is a fact that applies to everybody.
Yeah. Including you, including the people you disagree with. Everyone.
It's my favorite thing. Anyway, so if you guys want more of that pretentious nature, I don't think it's not pretentious. You guys call us out if we are, but I don't think that is. But you guys can go follow us on social media. If there's something that you guys want us to talk about on the pod or on social, we would love to talk about whatever you guys want to talk about writing wise, and possibly premenstrual dysphoric disorder wise, because I went off on that, and I'll do it again if you want me to. I mean, anyway,
this is content you like. We'll change for you.
Is this the content you like? I do it again just for you. Anyways, you guys can email contact@storysirenstudio.com. That is our production company. You can also go to that website and check out our merch if you want to support the pod, or you can support us on Patreon, or you can join the writing group for free on Patreon. And by that, I literally mean you can just go in there and put a comment for free about writing, and we will reply. And hopefully we will develop that into a writing group, and we can all talk about dreams and nightmares and writing and queries, visions, our visions for the future. Anyways, controversy, all the hot topics. Anyway, so go check that stuff out. And until next week, keep writing.
And we'll see you on the next page.